7 disturbing true horror stories from truck stops after my night. Story 1. The repeating woman. The woman in the yellow raincoat walked past my cab for the 3rd time in 6 minutes, and I knew something was catastrophically wrong because it was 78 degrees without a cloud in the Kentucky sky. I'd pulled into the Loves off I-65 just south of Elizabethtown at 1:47 a.m. on August 19, 2023. Needed to burn my mandatory 10-hour break before the Nashville push. The lot was maybe half full, typical Wednesday night crowd. I backed my Freightliner into slot 32, killed the engine, and was halfway through a gas station burrito when I first saw her. She moved like someone wading through deep water. Slow, deliberate, wrong. The raincoat hung to her knees, bright yellow and slick like it was soaked, but there was no rain. There hadn't been rain in this part of Kentucky for 11 days. I'd been watching the weather obsessively because I was hauling paper products, and moisture meant ruined loads meant money out of my pocket. She walked from the main building toward the truck lot, passing directly under the sodium lights. Her face stayed down. Hood up. I saw her hands, though pale, almost luminescent in the artificial light. They swung at her sides with mechanical precision. Left, right, left, right. Then she reached the edge of the lot and vanished into the darkness beyond the fence line. I went back to my burrito, checked my phone, scrolled through Facebook. The driver from my company had posted about a 4-vehicle pileup near Memphis. I was reading the comments when movement caught my eye. The woman in the yellow raincoat was walking past my truck again, same direction, same mechanical gait, same posture. I checked the time, 1:53 a.m., 6 minutes since I'd first seen her. My stomach tightened. I set down the burrito and leaned forward, watching her pass under the same lights. The raincoat gleamed. Her hands swung with that same metronomic rhythm. She reached the fence line. Darkness swallowed her. I grabbed my phone and opened the camera app. If she came back, I was getting video. This was weird enough to be worth posting to the trucker forums. Maybe someone had seen this before. Maybe there was an explanation. 1:59 a.m. 6 minutes exactly. She emerged from the building direction again, and I started recording. Through my phone screen, I watched her approach. The video quality was poor, grainy, and washed out from the sodium lights, but it was something. She passed my truck. I zoomed in on her face, but the hood shadowed everything except her chin. Pale skin, unnaturally pale. The kind of pale that belongs in hospital beds or morgues. She reached the darkness, disappeared. I posted the video to Trucker Watch with the caption, "Anyone know what this is about?" Loves off 65 south of E-Town. Woman's been walking the same path every 6 minutes. Weird as hell. 2:05 a.m. She came again. I wasn't recording this time. I was staring, trying to understand the logistics. Where was she going in that darkness? The fence ran along the back of the lot, separating it from a field of overgrown grass and scattered trees. Was she circling the entire truck stop somehow? But that would take longer than 6 minutes. I'd driven the perimeter. When I pulled in, it was at least a quarter mile around. My phone buzzed. Response on Trucker Watch already. User Hammer68. Get the fuck out of there now. That's not a woman. I read it twice. 3 times. My hands had gone cold. User Nighthaw. Os Nighthaw Gutra. Jesus Christ, you're at that loves. Check your mirrors. Check them now. I didn't want to. Some animal part of my brain was screaming not to look. But I forced my eyes to the driver's side mirror. She was standing directly beside my cab. Right outside my door. Not walking. Not moving. Just standing. The yellow raincoat filled my mirror. I couldn't see her face because she was too close, the angle wrong. But I could see her hand pressed against my door. Palm flat against the metal. Fingers splayed. The skin was the color of spoiled milk. I hadn't heard her approach. Hadn't heard footsteps or breathing or anything. 2:11 a.m. 6 minutes since the last walk by, but she broken pattern. She was here. The hand moved. Fingers dragged down the door with a sound like wet leather on steel. My entire body locked up. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The fingers reached the bottom of the door, and then she was moving, walking away, continuing toward the darkness. I watched her disappear. My phone was exploding with notifications. The Trucker Watch thread had blown up. 17 new comments in 3 minutes. User DESL Discademon. That same thing happened to my buddy at that exact Love's in 2019. He said she walked the pattern 23 times before sunrise. Each time she got closer to the trucks, on the 23rd time she opened his door, he saw her face. He won't tell anyone what he saw, but he quit trucking. And last I heard, he's in some facility in Indiana. User long HUL Meek. There's stories about this. Old timers call her the Loop Woman. She's stuck. Died in that field behind the lot back in the 70s. Got murdered. Keeps trying to get back to the building, but something won't let her complete the path. If she touches you, you get stuck too. In user ORoadKank77. Bullshit. This is urban legend crap. User Hammer68. Is it? Then explain the video. Explain why she's wearing a raincoat when it hasn't rained. Explain why she moves like that. 2:17 a.m. I was watching the darkness where she disappeared. My hand was on my key, ready to start the engine and leave. Fuck the 10-hour break. Fuck the logbook violation. I'd pay the fine. She emerged from the darkness. But she wasn't alone. There were 7 of them now, all in yellow raincoats, all moving with that same drowning in deep water gait. They walked in single file, evenly spaced, hands swinging in perfect synchronization. Left, right, left, right. The lead figure was the original woman. The others followed. I could see variations, now different heights, different builds, but all wore identical raincoats. All kept their hoods up. All had that corpse-pale skin visible at their hands and throats. They walked past my truck. I pressed myself back into my seat like that extra 6 inches of distance mattered. The line passed. 7 figures moving toward the darkness beyond the fence. My phone. 29 new comments. I couldn't read them. My hands were shaking too badly. 2:23 a.m. 6 minutes. 8 figures emerged. The same 7 plus 1 more. This one was smaller, child-sized. The yellow raincoat dragged on the ground behind it. I started my engine. The sound cut through the silence of the truck stop like a scream. Lights flickered on and other cab's drivers waking. Annoyed, the line of figures stopped. All 8, perfectly synchronized. They stopped mid-step and stood frozen. Then, slowly, all 8 heads turned toward my truck. I saw faces under those hoods. I saw what my eyes tried desperately to reject. The faces were wrong, asymmetrical. Features sliding slowly downward, like wax melting in heat. Eyes too large, mouths opening in perfect circles. No teeth, no tongues, just darkness inside that went back farther than throats should go. The original woman, the first one I'd seen, stepped out of the line. She walked directly toward my cab, not the mechanical gate anymore. This was purposeful, fast. I slammed the truck into gear. The air brakes hissed. I didn't bother with proper procedure. I just moved. The Freightliner lurched forward. I heard something hit my trailer a sound, like a palm slapping metal, and then I was accelerating through the lot, nearly clipping a parked Peterbilt. My CB radio crackled to life. Pure static. Then, underneath the static, a voice. Wet. Distorted. Speaking in rhythm. 6 minutes. 6 minutes. 6 minutes. I hit the lot exit, doing 45. The truck's weight made the turn dangerous. I felt the trailer wheels lift slightly. Didn't care. I merged onto I-65 southbound with my logbook screaming violations I'd have to answer for later. In my mirror, I could see the Lubs receding, the lights at the lot, the parked trucks, and the line of yellow raincoats walking. 9 now. A new figure had joined them. I drove straight through to Nashville. Didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Delivered my load 6 hours early and told dispatch I needed 3 days off. They argued. I hung up. The Trucker Watch thread had grown to 247 comments by dawn. Drivers sharing their own experiences at that Lubs. Similar stories. The woman in yellow. The loop. The 6-minute pattern. Some said they'd seen her alone. Others reported multiple figures. One driver claimed to have counted 37 raincoats before he fled. The final comment came from a deleted account. Posted at 6:03 a.m. Her name was Sharon Kemp, killed July 4th, 1976. Tried to run from her boyfriend across that field. Took him 6 minutes to catch her. Then 6 more to kill her. Then 6 more to drag her body to where he buried it. She's trying to run that path in reverse, trying to undo it, but every time she fails, another piece of her breaks, and everyone she touches becomes part of the loop. There are 64 of them now, maybe 65. Hard to count after midnight. I haven't been back to that. Lubs. Won't ever go back. But last week I was at a pilot in Tennessee, and while I was fueling at 3 a.m., I saw something that made my blood crystallize. A woman. Standing at the edge of the lot, watching the trucks. She wasn't wearing the yellow raincoat. She was wearing a blue jacket. But she stood with that same wrong posture, that same mechanical stillness. And when she started walking toward the building, I counted. 6 minutes later, she walked back. Story 2, the fuelless land attendant. The credit card reader wasn't working on pump 7, so I had to go inside the TA Travel Center to prepay, and that's when I first spoke to the attendant who had been dead for 19 years. This was outside Kingman, Arizona, on Interstate 40. March 3rd, 2024. I've been driving a dedicated route Los Angeles to Albuquerque and back for 6 months. Stopped at this particular TA exactly twice per week, always between 2 and 3 in the morning. I knew the overnight staff, or thought I did. The man behind the counter was someone I'd never seen before. He was old, 70 at least, wearing a TA uniform that looked decades out of date, the old brown and orange color scheme they discontinued in the early 2000s. His name tag said Vernon in faded letters. His skin had a gray pallor that suggested decades of night shifts and cigarettes. His eyes were watery and distant. Pump 7, I said, $200. Vernon moved slowly. His hands trembled as he operated the register. The machine was ancient, not the modern touchscreen system the TA Corporation had installed chain-wide 3 years ago. This was a mechanical register with physical buttons and a paper receipt roller. "You're new," I said, making conversation while he processed my cash. Vernon looked up, his eyes focused on me, with an intensity that made my spine straighten. "No," he said. His voice was dust and gravel. "I've been here longer than anyone." The receipt printer jammed. Vernon opened the machine and adjusted the paper with practiced efficiency. His fingers were stained yellow, old tobacco stains that went bone deep. "Pump 7's got a trick to it," Vernon said as he handed me the receipt. "You gotta hold the nozzle at a 45-degree angle, or it'll click off every 30 seconds. Owner's been meaning to fix it for years, but he's cheap. Thanks for the tip." I took the receipt. The paper felt wrong, too thick, too rough, like the thermal paper they used in the 80s. Outside, I followed Vernon's instructions. Held the nozzle at an angle. The fuel flowed smoothly. $200 took about 12 minutes to pump. While I waited, I watched the main building through the island lights. Vernon stood at the window, watching me. Not moving, just standing with his hands at his sides and his face pressed close to the glass. Something was wrong with his reflection. It didn't quite match his position. The reflection showed him slightly to the left of where he actually stood, like there was lag between his body and his image. The pump clicked. I holstered the nozzle and walked back inside to get my receipt. The midnight fuel discount meant I'd have credit coming back. Vernon wasn't behind the counter. A younger guy was there, instead maybe 30, wearing the modern TA uniform. His name tag said KYLE. He looked up from his phone. "Help you." "I just paid Vernon for pump 7, $200. Need my change." Kyle's expression shifted, confused. Then something else. Something guarded. "Vernon?" "Yeah." Old guy. Brown and orange uniform. He was just here. There's nobody else on shift. Kyle stood up. "I've been here alone since midnight." My receipt was sitting on the counter. The old thick paper. I picked it up. The ink was already fading, turning brown like old blood. But I could read the timestamp, March 3rd, 2005. 19 years ago. Same date, same time, 2:38 a.m. What the fuck is this? I showed Kyle the receipt. His face went pale. "Where did you get that?" "From Vernon, the guy who was standing right where you are 5 minutes ago." Kyle came around the counter. He moved fast, checking the back room, the bathroom, the storage area. Empty. He returned breathing hard. "Describe him." "Exactly." I did. The old uniform, the gray skin, the watery eyes, the yellowed fingers. Kyle's hands were shaking by the time I finished. Vernon Pascoe, Kyle said quietly. He worked here for 41 years. Overnight shift always, never missed a day. He had a heart attack behind that counter in 2005. March 3rd, 2:38 a.m. Died before the ambulance arrived. The receipt in my hand was turning to powder, literally crumbling. I watched black flakes fall from the paper, disintegrating like ash. That's impossible, I said. But I was watching the receipt vanish. Kyle grabbed his phone, pulled up something, turned the screen toward me. It was a memorial page from the TA corporate website. Vernon Pascoe's photograph stared back at me. Same face, same watery eyes. In memoriam, Vernon Pascoe, 1934 to 2005. Dedicated employee and friend. His commitment to customer service will never be forgotten. I just talked to him. My voice sounded distant. He told me about Pump 7. Pump 7 has had that same problem for 30 years, Kyle whispered. Vernon always told people about the angle trick. I heard this story from the day manager. It's like company legend. But Vernon's the only one who ever actually said it to customers. The receipt was almost gone. Just a corner remained in my fingers. I watched the last piece crumble. It happens sometimes, Kyle said. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring at the space behind the counter where Vernon had stood. Other drivers have reported it, always on March 3rd, always between 2 and 3 a.m., always the same interaction. He takes their money, gives them advice about the pumps, and then he's just gone. Why? I needed an explanation, a rational breakdown of events. Nobody knows. The company doesn't acknowledge it officially, but the overnight staff knows. We all know. Vernon died at his post. He was ringing up a customer when it happened. Some people think he doesn't realize he's dead. Doesn't understand that his shift ended 19 years ago. He just keeps working. I left. Got back in my truck. Sat in the cab with my hands on the steering wheel and tried to process. Through my windshield, I could see the main building. Kyle was back behind the counter, visible through the window. Vernon stood beside him. Kyle couldn't see him. Was looking down at his phone, scrolling. But Vernon was there, less than 2 feet away, staring at Kyle's face with that watery-eyed intensity. Vernon's mouth moved, saying something. Instructions or advice or stories from 41 years of overnight shifts. Kyle never looked up, never reacted. I watched for 17 minutes. Vernon eventually moved away from Kyle, walking slowly toward the back room. His body faded as he walked, translucent, then transparent, then gone. I made myself drive, put Kingman in my mirror and focused on Albuquerque. But I had questions eating at my brain. Questions I researched at every truck stop Wi-Fi connection between Arizona and New Mexico. Vernon Pascoe had worked the overnight shift from 1964 until his death in 2005. 41 years of 2 a.m. to 10 a.m., 5 days per week. That's approximately 10,660 shifts. He'd seen oil embargoes and CB radio crazes and the rise of electronic logging devices. He'd served 3 generations of truckers. On the forums, I found 12 other drivers who had encountered Vernon, all on March 3rd, all between 2 and 3 a.m. All described the same interaction. The old uniform, the register advice, the helpful tip about pump angles. One driver posted a photograph. He'd taken it through the window while Vernon rang him up. The image showed the counter, the old register, but no person. The space where Vernon stood was empty in the photograph, just the counter and the wall behind it. Another driver claimed Vernon had given him change in coins that dated from 1978, silver quarters that hadn't been minted in decades. The driver still had them. Posted pictures. The coins were real. The dates verified. A third driver said Vernon had warned him about a brake problem. "Your rear tandems are dragging," Vernon had said. "Get that checked in, Flagstaff." The driver had ignored it initially, but checked anyway. The brake chamber was failing, would have caused a catastrophic failure within 50 miles. Vernon was still working, still serving customers, still caring about the details that made a good overnight attendant valuable. Death was a clock out he'd never acknowledged. I went back to that TA 4 days later. Different day, different time, noon on March 7th. Asked the day manager about Vernon. The manager, a woman named Susan in her 50s, went very still when I said the name. "You saw him?" she asked. I told her everything. The register, the receipt, the uniform. She listened without interrupting. "It's his anniversary week," Susan said when I finished. "March 3rd is when he died, but he worked the entire week before that. March 1st through 5th. Some people think he's trying to finish that last week. Like he's stuck in a loop, working the shifts he never got to complete." "Can I see where he died? The exact spot?" Susan hesitated, then nodded. Led me behind the counter. There was a subtle discoloration on the floor, a stain that had never quite come out despite 19 years of cleaning. "Heart attack was massive," Susan said. "He was talking to a customer about fuel additives. Mid-sentence, he grabbed his chest and went down, dead before he hit the ground." I looked at the stain, looked at the register, the modern one, touchscreen and corporate issued. "Where's the old register?" "Basement. We keep old equipment down there. Corporate policy: maintain one backup of everything mechanical in case the electronic systems fail." "Can I see it?" Susan studied my face. "Why?" "'Cause I need to understand." We went down. The basement was concrete and fluorescent lights and decades of accumulated TA history. Old signs, discontinued uniforms, obsolete equipment, and in the corner, covered with a tarp, the mechanical register. I pulled the tarp back. The machine was identical to the one Vernon had used. I pressed a key. The register dinged. The cash drawer popped open. Inside were coins. Old coins. Quarters from 1978. Dimes from 83. Pennies from 91. All denominations. All decades old. "We found those in there when we replaced the register," Susan said quietly. 19 years ago. We were going to deposit them, but they kept coming back. We took them to the bank. They'd reappear in the drawer. Happened 6 times. Eventually we just left them. I picked up a quarter, felt the weight. The metal was cold, colder than it should be. "Every March 3rd, the basement temperature drops," Susan continued. 10 to 15 degrees. Only down here. Nowhere else in the building. It stays cold until sunrise. Then it normalizes. "He's still here," I said. There wasn't a question. He never left. This place was his life. 41 years. He used to tell people he'd work here until he died. And then he did. And I guess he's still keeping that promise. I go to that TA every week now. Same route, same schedule. I've never seen Vernon again outside of March 3rd. But Kyle tells me Vernon appears reliably. Every March 3rd. Every year. Taking one customer's payment. Giving one piece of advice. Finishing one transaction from an endless shift. Last March 3rd, I was there. 2:41 a.m. I went inside. Kyle was behind the counter, and beside him, translucent but present, stood Vernon. "Pump 7, I said directly to Vernon. $200. He looked at me. Through me. His watery eyes held something that might have been recognition. Might have been gratitude. Someone seeing him. Someone acknowledging his work. "Pump 7's got a trick," Vernon said. His voice echoed slightly, like it was coming from very far away. 45-degree angle on the nozzle. "I know," I said. "You told me last year. Best advice I ever got." Vernon smiled. It was a sad smile. Tired. But genuine. "Thank you," he said. Then he faded. Slower than usual. Lingering. His hand reached toward the old register that wasn't there anymore. His fingers moved through empty air, pressing keys only he could see. The ghost of a receipt printed. He tore it along a perforation only he could feel. He handed me nothing. But I held out my hand anyway. Felt cold air where paper should be. "You're a good man, Vernon," I said. He nodded once. Then he was gone. Kyle was staring at me. "You saw him?" "Yeah. What did he give you?" I looked at my empty hand. But it wasn't empty. Something was there. Translucent. Fading. A receipt from 2005. The thermal paper solidifying slowly into reality. It said, "Thank you for your business. Drive safe." I still have it. Keep it in my logbook. The paper is yellowed and brittle now, but the words remain. Some nights, when I'm parked at that TA, I swear I can smell cigarettes and old coffee. The smell of 41 years of overnight shifts. Vernon still working, still serving, still caring. Death wasn't the end of his shift, just another clock to punch. Story 3. The shower stall in Rosa. I found the teeth in the drain of shower stall C7 at the Petro in Gary, Indiana. And that's when I realized the screaming I'd been hearing for the last 11 minutes wasn't coming from outside the building. It was 4:16 a.m. on November 9th, 2023. I'd been on the road for 11 hours, hauling refrigerated pharmaceuticals from Chicago to Pittsburgh. My back ached. My eyes burned. I needed a shower and 6 hours of sleep before the next push. The Petro was convenient, right off I-90. Familiar, usually quiet at this hour. The shower building was separate from the main truck stop. Cinder block construction. Harsh, fluorescent lights. 16 stalls arranged in 2 rows. I paid the attendant a kid named Marcus who looked half asleep, and he handed me a key card for C7. Avoid the last stall in row C if possible, Marcus said. Drain's been slow. C7's fine, I told him. I just wanted hot water. The shower block was empty. My footsteps echoed off tile as I walked down row C stalls on my left. Walls on my right. Industrial fixtures. Metal partitions. Everything painted that institutional beige that suggests decades of half-hearted maintenance. C7 was third from the end. I swiped the key card. The electronic lock clicked. I pushed the door open. The stall was standard. 6 by 8 feet. Shower head. Bench. Hooks for clothes and towels. Drain in the center of the floor. Everything was clean. Or clean enough. The Petro management ran a tight facility. I stripped. Hung my clothes. Started the water. It took 40 seconds to warm up. Steam filled the small space. I stepped under the stream and felt my muscles begin to unknot. That's when the screaming started. It was distant, muffled. Like someone shouting through layers of insulation. I turned off the water to hear better. The screaming continued. A man's voice. Raw. Desperate. Not words. Just pure vocalized terror. I wrapped a towel around my waist and opened the stall door. The shower block was still empty. The screaming had stopped. I went back inside. Started the water again. Maybe it had been outside. Some altercation in the parking lot. Truckers arguing. It happened. But when I stepped into the water stream, the screaming resumed. Immediately. Same volume. Same tone. I could feel it vibrating through the pipes. That's where it was coming from. The plumbing. Sound traveling through water and metal. I looked down at the drain. Something was blocking it. The water pooled around my feet, rising slowly. I knelt, reached toward the drain cover to clear whatever debris had clogged it. My fingers touched something hard, small, sharp. I pulled my hand back. There were 4 teeth sitting in my palm. Human teeth. Molars. Still wet. Still warm. The screaming got louder, not from the pipes anymore, from the drain itself, like there was a throat directly below the drain cover, a mouth screaming up through the plumbing. I grabbed my towel and backed against the door. The water was still running. The drain was completely clogged now. Water rising past my ankles, and in that water, more teeth were surfacing, floating up from the drain, dozens of them. Molars and incisors and canines. Some intact, some shattered, all stained with something dark that definitely wasn't rust. The screaming resolved into words. Help M, help M, help M. I yanked the door open and stumbled into the hallway. Dripping, shaking, Marcus was walking down row C with a mop bucket. There's something in C7, I said. My voice cracked. The drain. There's teeth, Marcus interrupted. He set down the bucket. His expression was resigned. Tired. Yeah, that happens sometimes. What the fuck do you mean that happens sometimes? Marcus pulled out a key card, swiped it on C7, pushed the door open. Steam billowed out. He stepped inside. I followed, staying in the doorway. The water was 6 inches deep now. The drain was hidden under the flood. But the teeth were everywhere, hundreds of them, covering the floor like hail after a storm. Marcus waded to the shower control and shut off the water. The screaming stopped immediately. Silence crashed down. "Drain snakes in the maintenance closet," Marcus said. "Give me 10 minutes. What the fuck?" I couldn't formulate complex thoughts. Marcus turned to face me. "You really want to know?" "Yes." He sighed, pulled a pair of rubber gloves from his pocket, started picking up teeth, dropping them into a plastic bag he'd also pulled from his pocket. Like this was routine, like he'd done it 100 times. 2009, Marcus began. Guy named Dale Hoffman stayed in the stall. Overnight shower. He was in here for about 15 minutes. Normal shower. But when he didn't come out after an hour, the attendant checked on him. Found Dale on the floor. Drain cover removed. His mouth was wrong, pressed against the drain opening, and all his teeth were gone. Just gone. Like someone had extracted every tooth with surgical precision while he was conscious. I felt my legs weaken. He died? Eventually. But it took 6 hours, and he screamed the entire time, even without teeth, even with his mouth destroyed. He screamed until his throat ruptured. Coroner said it looked like something had pulled the teeth out through his jaw. From inside, like hooks coming up through the drain and latching onto the roots. Marcus had collected maybe 50 teeth. The bag was quarter full. More teeth kept surfacing from the water, floating up like bubbles. Since then, it happens randomly, Marcus continued. Always C7. Always between midnight and 6 a.m. The teeth appear. The screaming comes through the pipes. Usually lasts 10 to 20 minutes. Then everything goes back to normal. Why the fuck is this stall still in service? Corporate doesn't believe us. We've reported it 47 times. They send inspectors, but it only happens maybe twice a month. Random nights. The inspectors never witness it. They think we're making it up, or trying to get the facility shut down for some lawsuit. The water level was dropping. The clog had cleared somehow. Teeth swirled around the drain and got sucked down. The plastic bag in Marcus's hand was pulling. Actually pulling toward the drain. Like a magnet. He had to grip it with both hands to keep it from being yanked away. "What are you doing with those?" I asked. "Same thing I do every time. Take them to the dumpster. Throw them away. By morning they'll be back in the drain, waiting." The last of the water gurgled down. The drain was clear. Spotless. Like nothing had happened. Marcus released the bag. The pulling sensation apparently stopped. He tied it shut. "Dale Hoffman is still here," Marcus said. "Still in this stall. Still screaming. And every time someone showers in C7, he tries to take their teeth. Tries to replace what he lost. Hasn't succeeded yet. But he keeps trying." "How do you know he hasn't succeeded?" Marcus looked at me. Really looked at me. His mouth opened. His teeth were perfect. White. Even. Then he pulled his lips back farther. Too far, showed me the back of his mouth. 2 molars were missing. Upper left. Just empty sockets. Healed over. But wrong. The gums were black. Necrotic. "He got 2 of mine," Marcus whispered. "Last April. I was cleaning C7 after a report. Bent down to check the drain. Felt something grab my jaw. Like fingers. But impossible angles. From inside my mouth. Pushing out. I screamed and pulled back. Felt teeth tear loose. They fell into my hands. Then got pulled out of my hands. Sucked into the drain." He closed his mouth. "I should have quit. But this job pays $17 an hour, and I've got a kid. So I stay. I just don't ever get close to that drain anymore." I left. Didn't finish my shower. Didn't even get dressed properly. Just grabbed my clothes and ran. Marcus called after me something about no refunds, but I didn't care. I drove straight through to Pittsburgh. Didn't stop again until daylight. But the story stayed with me. I researched. Found Dale Hoffman's death record. November 13th, 2009. Cause of death, exsanguination and shock following severe oral trauma. The autopsy photos were sealed, but the coroner's report was public record. It described injuries consistent with forcible dental extraction via unknown methodology. All 32 teeth removed. The jaw showed microfractures radiating from each socket. The tongue was shredded. The throat was ruptured from sustained screaming. Time of death was estimated at 6:47 a.m. He'd been conscious for approximately 6 hours. The report noted one additional detail that made my blood freeze. Traces of human enamel found in the facility drainage system appear to predate victim's death by unknown period. Chemical analysis suggests samples range from 540 years old. Origin and significance unknown. Dale Hoffman wasn't the first. He was just the first one documented. I posted about this on Trucker Watch. Got 34 responses. 8 other drivers claimed to have experienced something similar at various shower facilities. Different truck stops, different states, but always the same pattern. Teeth appearing. Screaming from drains. The sensation of being pulled toward the plumbing. One driver username Palm Freight Sandy Renstant the phenomenon, called it drain convergence. His theory, truck stop showers are liminal spaces. Hundreds of people pass through them every day. Anonymous. Transient. No connection to the space except their momentary need for hot water. When someone dies in that kind of space, dies violently, dies wrong. They don't haunt a place. They haunt a function. It's not about the physical location, Farntom or Freight wrote. It's about the act, the vulnerability, standing naked under running water. Eyes closed, guard down. That's when they can reach you. That's when the drains become passages. I don't shower at truck stops anymore. Haven't in 9 months. I use wet wipes in truck stop sinks. It's not comfortable. It's not ideal. But I still have all my teeth. Last week I delivered a load to Indianapolis. Parked at a Love's off I-70. At 3:22 a.m. I heard screaming. Faint. Coming from the shower building. I looked out my window. Other drivers were starting to react. Lights coming on in cabs. People opening doors. The screaming continued for 12 minutes, then stopped. In the morning, I asked the fuel desk attendant if anything had happened overnight. She went pale. One of the shower stalls flooded, she said. Maintenance found teeth in the drain. Hundreds of them. They're closed until corporate can inspect. Anyone hurt? No. The stall was empty. But, she hesitated. The driver who'd reserved that stall for 4 a.m., they found him in his truck. He was fine, physically. But he kept saying something had called his name, had told him to come to the shower, promised to make him clean. She leaned closer. He said he was walking toward the shower building, had his towel and his soap. And then he realized the voice wasn't coming from the building. It was coming from his mouth, from his own throat, like something was using his voice to call himself. I left immediately. There are 7,200 truck stops in America, thousands of shower facilities, millions of transient moments of vulnerability. And in some of those drains, something waits, something hungry, something that knows your teeth are the hardest part of you to destroy, the part that remains long after flesh and bone have rotted, the part that might last forever, might keep screaming, might keep reaching up through the pipes for someone new to pull down. I still hear the screaming sometimes, on quiet nights, when I'm parked, when I close my eyes. It sounds like my voice, calling from drains I haven't used yet. Story 4. The lot lizard with no face. She knocked on my cab door at 3:14 a.m., and when I turned on my dome light to wave her away, I saw smooth skin where her features should have been. No eyes, no nose, no mouth, just an expanse of flesh like a mannequin's blank face. This was at a Flying J outside Amarillo, Texas. January 26, 2024. Temperature was 19 degrees. Wind coming across the plains made it feel like 0. I'd parked in the back lot where the long haulers congregated. Row 8, slot 42. As far from the main building as possible because I needed sleep, and the fuel island lights kept me awake. I'd backed in at 2:40 a.m., killed the engine, set my alarm for my 10-hour break. Was maybe 15 minutes from unconscious when the knocking started. 3 measured taps. Pause. 3 more taps. Pause. Mechanical. Precise. I ignored it. Lot lizards were an occupational hazard. sex workers who worked truck stops, tapping on doors, offering services. I had no judgment about their work, but I also had no interest. I learned years ago that ignoring them was the easiest approach. The knocking continued. Same rhythm. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. I sat up, turned on my dome light, prepared to crack my window and politely decline. That's when I saw her. She stood on my running board, pressed against my driver's side door, wearing a white dress that was too thin for the temperature. Her hair was long and dark. Her hands were pale. And her face. There was nothing. Smooth skin from hairline to chin. The flesh had the texture of scar tissue. Tight, shiny. Where eyes should have been, there were shallow depressions. Where a nose should have been, there was a slight convexity. Where a mouth should have been, there was nothing but seamless skin. But she was breathing. I could see her chest rising and falling. Could see condensation forming on my window from breath that had no mouth to exit. I didn't move. Every instinct screamed to start the engine and leave, but my hands were frozen on my lap. She stood there, motionless, her blank face turned toward me. Then her hand came up. She pressed her palm against my window. Her fingers spread slowly. Between each finger, the skin was webbed. Translucent membranes stretched from knuckle to knuckle. She knocked again, same rhythm. 3 taps. Her palm never left the glass. I found my voice. No. Go away. She tilted her head. The movement was wrong. Too far. A person's head doesn't tilt at that angle without breaking their neck. Her other hand came up, pressed against the window beside the first. Now both palms were flat against the glass. Both sets of webbed fingers spread wide. The condensation from her breath was forming patterns, not random fog. Deliberate shapes. Letters. Hebel M-E. I grabbed my phone, called 911. The dispatcher answered on the second ring. I tried to explain woman outside my truck, something wrong with her face, need police, but my words came out jumbled. The dispatcher said units were en route. Estimated arrival, 17 minutes. The woman pressed her face against the window. The smooth skin flattened against the glass. I could see the depressions where eyes should be. Could see something moving under that skin. Bulges, shapes, like eyes trying to push through from underneath. But the skin was too thick, too tough. The bulges moved, tracked left and right, focusing on me, seeing me through flesh that shouldn't allow sight. Help me, the condensation said again. How? I shouted. What do you want? Her hands moved, drew more letters in the fog. Open. I'm not opening this door. The eye bulges stopped moving, fixed on me. The skin over them pressed outward, harder. I heard a sound like fabric tearing. A split appeared in the smooth skin above the right eye bulge. Blood welled, black in the dome light. The split widened. Something pushed through. An eye, blue, human, staring at me with desperate intensity. Jesus Christ, I breathed. The mouth area began to bulge. The skin stretched. Something was pushing from inside her face, trying to break through. The bulge grew, distended. The skin went translucent from the strain. I could see teeth behind it. A jaw, a tongue. The skin tore. A vertical split from where the nose should be down to the chin. Blood poured. The split widened like opening a zipper. A mouth emerged. Lips, teeth. She gasped. Air rushed into revealed lungs. Help me, she said. Her voice was wet, damaged, like she hadn't spoken in years. Please, he's making me smooth. Who? Who's doing this? She turned, looked back toward the rows of parked trucks. Her torn face dripped blood onto my door. The wind caught her white dress. It wasn't a dress. It was a hospital gown, the kind that ties in the back. He takes us from the showers, she whispered. Takes us to his truck. Takes us to his truck. Takes our faces, smooths them, keeps us, makes us knock. A light came on 3 rows over. Row 5. A cab's interior light. Someone was moving inside. The woman's remaining smooth skin began to bulge. more eyes trying to emerge, but also something else. The skin around her mouth was thickening, growing, spreading, trying to seal again. No, no, she gasped. Her mouth was closing, the skin expanding, covering her lips. Run. He's. The skin sealed. Her mouth vanished. The eye I'd seen retreated. The torn flesh healed with impossible speed. In 15 seconds, her face was smooth again. Blank. Perfect. She stepped down from our running board, walked away. The white hospital gown flapped in the wind. She walked toward row 5, toward the cab with the light on. I watched her knock on that driver's door. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. The driver opened his door. A man in his 60s, bearded. I saw him look confused, saw him start to speak. Then the woman grabbed his shirt and pulled. The driver fell out of his cab, hit the pavement. The woman dragged him. Her strength was impossible. She pulled a full-grown man across the asphalt like he was a child. I jumped out of my truck. "Hey, stop!" She didn't stop. Pulled the driver toward a truck I hadn't noticed before. A white day cab with no markings. No company logo. No dot number. Just white paint and tinted windows. The driver was screaming now, kicking. But she was impossibly strong. She dragged him to the white truck's passenger door. The door opened from inside. I saw an arm reach out, pale, long fingers. The fingers grabbed the driver's head, pulled him up. Pulled him up, the door slammed. I ran, pulled my phone, dialed 911 again, started describing everything. The dispatcher was confused. "Sir, officers are already en route to your location. Eden now 14 minutes. There's a white day cab," I panted. "No markings. Someone just pulled a driver inside. You need to." The white truck's engine started. Lights came on. It began to move. I tried to get the plate number. There was no plate, just a blank metal frame. The truck accelerated through the lot, took the exit at 40 miles per hour, turned onto the service road, disappeared toward I-40. Police arrived 12 minutes later. I told them everything. They took my statement. Check row 5. The driver's truck was there. Door open. Engine running. Logbook on the seat. Phone on the dash. Wallet and keys present. But no driver. His name was Raymond Cortez. 62. From Tucson. Drove for a regional carrier. His company reported him missing the next morning when he didn't make his delivery window. He's never been found. I started researching. Trucker Watch, Facebook groups, Reddit threads. I found 17 similar reports. Different truck stops, different states, but always the same pattern. A woman in white, knocking. 3 taps. When drivers refused, she disappeared. When drivers opened their doors, she pulled them out, dragged them to a white truck with no markings. They vanished. The descriptions of the woman varied. Different heights, different hair colors, different ages. But when drivers mentioned her face, the ones who'd actually looked, they described the same thing. Smooth, blank, featureless. One driver on Trucker Watch claimed to have escaped. Username RoadWarrior88. He said the woman had grabbed him, but he'd fought back. Broke free. When he got back to his truck, he found a handprint on his door. The print was burned into the paint, not melted. Burned. Like acid or extreme heat. The print showed 5 fingers with webbing between them. He posted a photo. The handprint was real. The webbing was visible. RoadWarrior88's last post was 3 weeks after that photo. It said, "She came back. She's knocking again. But this time, I can hear her inside my head. She's saying my name. I think I'm going to open the door. I think I have to." He never posted again. I contacted the FBI. They took my report, added it to 17 others. But there were no leads, no witnesses except traumatized drivers, no forensics, no pattern to the locations. The white truck appeared randomly, took someone, vanished. An FBI agent named Morrison called me 3 weeks later. "We've identified 6 victims," she said, "all truck drivers. All disappeared from truck stops between midnight and 4 a.m. But we found something else. What? We accessed traffic camera footage from 4 of the disappearances. The white truck appears on camera, but it's wrong. Wrong how? It's there in one frame, gone in the next. Not driving away, just absent, like it was edited out. But we verified the footage integrity. Nothing was altered. The truck simply ceases to exist between frames. That's impossible. Yes. Morrison paused. I heard papers rustling. There's another thing. We enhanced the images of the woman, used facial reconstruction software. We got matches. Matches to what? Missing persons. 7 of them. All women. Disappeared between 1996 and 2018. All were last seen at truck stops. All vanished without trace. He's been doing this for decades, at least. And here's what really concerns us. The women we identified, they all had families, jobs, lives. They weren't sex workers. They were travelers, victims. And now they're this, doing his work, helping him. I felt sick. The smooth faces. He does that to them. We think so. It appears to be some kind of punishment or control. Remove their ability to speak, to be seen, to be identified. Make them helpers. Make them knock. How do we stop him? We don't know. We can't find the truck. Can't track it. It appears. Take someone. Disappears. The physics don't work. It's like it's not entirely here. I hung up. Sat in my cab. Moved out at the rows of sleeping trucks. Thought about all the drivers who'd heard that knocking. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. How many had opened their doors? I don't park in backlots anymore. I stay close to the main buildings, under lights, near security cameras. I sleep with my doors locked and my phone ready. But 3 nights ago, I was at a pilot in Oklahoma, parked under a light 50 feet from the building. At 3:14 a.m., I heard knocking. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. I didn't turn on my light. Didn't look. I started my engine. Put the truck in gear. Pulled forward. In my mirror, I saw her, standing where my truck had been. White dress, dark hair, blank face. But as I drove away, I saw her head turn, tracking my movement. And I saw something else. There were others. 3 more figures in white, standing in the shadows between parked trucks, all with smooth, blank faces, all watching me drive away. He has 4 helpers now. I wonder how many he'll have by summer. Story 5. The radio station that doesn't exist. My CB picked up the broadcast at 2:57 a.m., and the voice said my mother's name even though she'd been dead for 6 years, and I'd never mentioned her on any radio frequency. I was on US 83 heading south through the Nebraska Sandhills. February 11th, 2024. No moon. No other traffic. Just my headlights cutting through darkness and the endless roll of frozen grassland on both sides. The CB had been quiet for 90 minutes. I kept it on channel 19, the standard trucker channel, but nobody was talking. Too late. Too empty. Most drivers were sleeping or running without radios. Then static burst from the speaker. Sharp. Painful. I reached to turn down the volume. A voice cut to the static. Margaret Teresa Cole. Born March 7th, 1956. Died October 9th, 2018. My hand froze. Those were my mother's dates. Exact. Her full name including the middle name she hated and never used. The voice continued. Male. Neutral tone, like a news announcer. She died at 3:27 p.m. in room 414 of Mercy Hospital, Kansas City. You were not there. You were driving. Load of automotive parts to Des Moines. You missed her death by 43 minutes. I pulled onto the shoulder. My hands were shaking. The CB shouldn't know this. Couldn't know this. CB radio was analog. Old technology. Walkie-talkies with longer range. There was no database. No internet connection. No way for a random voice to access my personal history. Who the fuck is this? I grabbed the mic. Keyed it. Identify yourself. The response was immediate. This is Station Omega. Broadcasting on all channels. All frequencies. All times. We know what you carry. I'm hauling steel coils. There's nothing. Not in your trailer. In your memory. Margaret Teresa Cole. You carry her. You carry the guilt. You carry the moment you answered your phone and heard your sister crying. You carry the knowledge that if you'd left Chicago 30 minutes earlier, you would have made it. I was going to be sick. This was impossible. This was... Station Omega broadcast the truth, the voice said. We transmit what you hide, what you bury, what you carry on every load, every mile, every night you can't sleep. I checked my CB, channel 19, but the frequency display was wrong. Instead of 19, it showed symbols I didn't recognize, shapes that hurt to look at, angular, aggressive. Switch channels, I said out loud, grabbed the dial, twisted to channel 21. The voice continued without interruption. Your father, William Cole. You carry him too. Carry the last conversation. December 24th, 2011. You told him you'd visit after New Year's. You never did. He died January 8th. Heart attack. Alone in his living room. The television was on. The Christmas tree lights were still plugged in. I switched to channel 5, channel 12, channel 12. Every channel carried the same broadcast, same voice, same impossible knowledge. Station Omega sees what you carry, every regret, every failure, every moment you replay at 3 a.m. when you can't sleep, and the road stretches endless and you wonder if you're driving towards something or away from everything. Stop! I was screaming into the mic. Stop this. Jennifer Marks, the voice said. The name hit me like a fist. You carry her. High school, junior year. You dated for 7 months. She said she loved you. You said you needed to focus on work, on your CDL training, on the future. She waited 6 months, then married someone else. You saw the wedding photos on Facebook. You carry the knowledge that you chose trucks over her, chose solitude over family, chose the road over roots. I ripped the CB power cord from the socket. The radio went dark, silent. The voice continued from my truck's stereo system. Station Omega broadcasts through all speakers, all receivers, all frequencies. You cannot turn us off. I punched the stereo power button. Nothing changed. The voice emanated from my phone now, from my ELD tablet, from the emergency radio I kept in the sleeper berth. We broadcast your cargo, the voice said. The weight you carry that bills of lading never document. The loads that grow heavier with each mile, each year, each choice that brings you here. Alone, on US 83, at 2:57 a.m., listening to us because you have no one else. I opened my door, stepped out into the freezing night. The wind cut through my jacket. I walked away from the truck. Away from the voices, but the voice followed. It came from my phone in my pocket. It came from the wind itself. It came from inside my head. Mitchell Walters, age 47, CDL for 26 years, 3 million miles driven, 2 failed marriages, no children, no property, no permanent address. You carry everything you own in a 72-inch sleeper berth, and you carry memories in your head that weigh more than any load you've ever hauled. What do you want? I screamed at the darkness. We want you to know that you're heard, the voice said. It was gentler now, almost kind. Station Omega exists for those who drive alone, who carry what cannot be weighed, who need to know that someone, somewhere, understands the weight. Behind me, my truck's air horn blasted. I spun around. The truck was empty. I could see through the windshield. No one in the driver's seat. The horn blasted again. 3 long bursts. There are others listening, the voice said. Other drivers, other frequencies. They carry their own loads, their own regrets. Station Omega connects them for this hour, this frequency, this moment of recognition. Static burst from my truck, then voices, different voices, overlapping, confessing, effort. Left my daughter's birthday party early for a load that could have waited. Told my wife I'd be home for Christmas, but I took a bonus run. Haven't seen my son in 4 years, and I don't know if I'd recognize him. Killed a dog in Iowa in '07 and never stopped, never reported it. My best friend died and I was 3 states away and I just kept driving. Dozens of voices, hundreds, all broadcasting confessions, all carrying weight that couldn't be measured in pounds or tonnage. Station Omega is the frequency of the forgotten, the original voice said. The channel for those who chose the road, who carry their lives in cabs and their regrets in silence. You are not alone, Mitchell Walters. You are heard. The voices faded. Static returned. Then silence. I stood on the shoulder of US 83 in the Nebraska sandhills in February cold and realized I was crying. Not from fear. From recognition. From relief. Someone new. Something new. The weight I'd been carrying for 26 years had been witnessed. I climbed back in my truck. The CB was still unplugged. The stereo was still off, but when I turned the key and the electrical system powered up, the CB display glowed with those same strange symbols. I plugged the CB back in, keyed the mic. Station Omega, are you still there? Static. Then, we are always here, broadcasting on frequencies between channels, in the spaces where numbers don't reach, when you need to confess, when you need to be heard, when the weight becomes too much. How do I find you again? You don't find us. We find you. When you're alone. When you're carrying too much. When you need to know that your cargo, all of it, even the invisible weight, is acknowledged. The CB went silent. The strange symbols faded from the display. Channel 19 returned. I sat there for 11 minutes. Then I picked up the mic and said, "This is Mitchell Walters. I'm driving south on US 83. I carry steel coils to Amarillo, and I carry my mother, and my father, and Jennifer Marks, and every choice I made that brought me here. If anyone's listening, if anyone understands, if anyone else is carrying weight they can't name." Silence. Then a click, another driver's voice. "This is Nathan Pierce. I-29 northbound. I carry refrigerated freight, and I carry my sister. She needed me, and I was on a run. She died, and I wasn't there. I carry that." Another voice. "Sarah Mendez. I-40 westbound. I carry auto parts. And I carry the fact that I've been driving for 19 years, and I can't remember why I started. Can't remember what I was trying to escape, but I'm still running." More voices. Confessions cascading across Channel 19. Drivers admitting what they carried beyond their manifests. Station Omega had opened something. A frequency where truth was mandatory, where the weight was acknowledged. I drove on, reached Amarillo by dawn, delivered my steel coils, but I kept my CB tuned to Channel 19. Listening, waiting. Station Omega hasn't returned. Not yet. But I know it will. When I need it. When the weight becomes too much. When I'm alone on some empty highway at 3 a.m. and the regrets press down harder than any load. I researched Station Omega. Found references in trucker forums. Old posts. Scattered reports. Drivers describing broadcasts that knew impossible things. Voices that spoke their secrets. Frequencies that didn't follow normal channel assignments. The oldest post I found was from 1983. A retired driver describing a CB broadcast that had spoken his name and his history. "It knew things," he wrote. "Things I'd never told anyone, about why I left my family. About the choices that seemed right at the time but poisoned everything after. It knew. And somehow that helped. Knowing I was heard, even if it was just some mysterious radio station. Even if it was impossible. Station Omega has been broadcasting for at least 41 years. Finding drivers. Speaking their hidden cargo. Offering recognition instead of absolution. I'm not religious. Don't believe in divine judgment or cosmic justice. But I believe in Station Omega. Because it found me. Because it knew. Because for 3 minutes on US 83 in the Nebraska sandhills, something acknowledged the weight I carry. And maybe that's all we need. Not forgiveness. Not solutions. Just acknowledgement. Just something that says, I know what you carry. And you don't have to carry it alone. Last week I was in Wyoming. US 287, 3:18 a.m. The CB crackled. "This is Station Omega," the voice said. "We have a message for Mitchell Walters." My hands tightened on the wheel. "Your mother understood. She knew your work. She knew your commitments. She carried no anger, only love. We've been asked to tell you this, to transmit across frequencies you can receive." The voice paused. When it returned, it wasn't the neutral announcer tone. It was my mother's voice. "Mitchell, baby. I know you were driving. I know you tried. It's okay. I carried you too. Every mile you drove, every load you hauled. I was proud. I am proud. You don't have to carry guilt anymore. Put it down. Let it go. I'm fine. I'm here. I'm broadcasting now too. When you need to hear this, Station Omega will find you." The CB went silent. I pulled over, cried for 40 minutes. Then I picked up the mic and said, "Thank you." Static answered. Then nothing. I drive with my CB on now. Always tuned to channel 19, but listening for the spaces between, for the frequencies that don't exist on any dial, for Station Omega's next broadcast. Because everyone carries invisible weight. Everyone drives alone sometimes. Everyone needs to be heard. And somewhere, on frequencies between the numbers, Station Omega broadcasts. Waiting for drivers who need to confess, who need to be known, who need to understand that their cargo, all of it, is witnessed. I'm still driving, still hauling, still carrying. But now I know I'm not carrying alone. Story 6. The parking space, the trucks. My Kenworth banished from slot B27 at the Iron Skillet in Effingham, Illinois, and when I found it 17 minutes later, it was parked in the exact same space with 432 additional miles on the odometer and my passenger seat soaked in blood. It was 3:09 a.m. on December 7th, 2023. I'd parked at 3 a.m. precisely. I remember checking my phone, remember the time glowing blue in the darkness, needed to use the restroom. Grabbed my phone and keys, locked the cab, walked to the main building. The bathroom was 60 feet from where I'd parked. I was inside for maybe 6 minutes, washed my hands, checked my roof for the morning, walked back out. My truck was gone, not stolen. The space was empty, completely empty, like I'd never parked there at all. The asphalt was dry where my truck should have been. No oil drips, no tire marks, no indication a 65-foot vehicle had been there minutes before. I stood staring at the empty space. My keys were in my hand. My mind couldn't process the absence. I'd parked a 78,000-pound truck. It couldn't just evaporate. I checked the next row. Maybe I'd misremembered. Maybe I'd parked in B28 or C27. But no. The spaces were filled with other trucks. Different companies. Different plates. I ran to the fuel desk. Someone stole my truck. Space B27. I was inside for 6 minutes, and it's just gone. The attendant, an older woman named Phyllis, looked up slowly. Her expression was wrong. Not concerned. Not surprised. Just tired. B27, she asked. "Yes. I parked there at 3 a.m. It was there, now it's not." Phyllis came around the counter, walked to the window, looked out toward the lot. She stared at B27 for a long moment. Then she turned back to me. "Your truck's right there," she said, pointing. I looked. B27 was still empty. "There's nothing. Look again." I looked. The space shimmered, like heat distortion. The air bent. And then my truck was there, sitting exactly where I'd parked it. Like it had never left. "What the fuck?" I breathed. "Come with me," Phyllis said. Her voice was flat, professional, like she'd done this before. We walked to my truck. It looked normal. Same Kenworth, same paint, same company logo. But when I climbed in, I smelled it. Blood, copper, and salt. Overwhelming. The passenger seat was soaked, dark red, still wet. The fabric squelched when I touched it. There was blood on the dashboard, blood on the passenger door, splatter patterns on the windshield from the inside. "Check your odometer," Phyllis said from outside the cab. I looked. When I'd parked, the odometer read 372,106 miles. Now it read 372,538 miles, 432 additional miles. What the fuck happened to my truck? My voice cracked. Phyllis pulled out a clipboard. License plate. I gave it to her. She wrote it down. Company? I told her. How long were you inside? 6 minutes, maybe 7. She wrote, then looked up at me. Your truck was gone for 17 minutes, not 6. When you walk away from B27, time moves differently. You experience minutes. Your truck experiences more. That doesn't make any sense. No, it doesn't. Phyllis tapped her pen on the clipboard. But it happens 2, maybe 3 times a month. Always B27. Always B27. Always between 2 and 4 a.m. Driver parks, goes inside, comes back. Their truck has been somewhere. Driven, used, but they never left. Never saw it move. Used for what? We don't know. Sometimes there's blood. Sometimes there's damaged dents, scratches, broken lights. Once there was a bullet hole through the sleeper berth. But no explanation, no witnesses, and the security cameras don't show anything. Security cameras would see someone stealing my truck. Come look. We went to the security office. Phyllis pulled up the footage, showed me the timestamp, 3 a.m. I watched myself park. Watched myself walk to the building. The camera showed my truck. The stuttered like a skipped frame. The space empty. At 3:17 a.m., the image stuttered again. The truck was back. There. Phyllis pointed. 17 minutes. But the camera never shows it leaving or returning. Just gone, then present. Where did it go? That's the question. Phyllis rewound the footage. Played it again. We've tried staying awake, watching B27 continuously, trying to catch it, but whenever someone parks there and walks away, this happens. The truck vanishes from observation, returns later, and it's always been somewhere. I looked at the blood on my hands. Whoever had bled in my truck had bled a lot. Arterial spray, life-threatening volume. I need to call the police. We already did. When you reported it missing, they're on their way. But they've been here before, for this exact thing. And they have no answers either. The police arrived, took samples of the blood, photographed the interior, documented the odometer discrepancy. I gave my statement 6 times. The blood came back as human, type O positive. But no DNA match in any database. No missing persons reports that aligned. No evidence of where my truck had been. The additional 432 miles suggested a round trip of 216 miles from Effingham. That could reach St. Louis, Indianapolis, Springfield, dozens of locations. But my truck's GPS was blank. No route history for those 17 minutes, like it had never moved, except it had. The odometer proved it. The blood proved it. The blood proved it. I posted about it on Trucker Watch, got 48 responses. 7 other drivers reported similar experiences at that exact iron skillet. Different parking spaces. B27 was mentioned most, but also C14, A8, and D22. User Midnight, Snoft, Maver. Happened to me last year. Parked in A8. Went inside for coffee. Came back. Truck had been driven. Found mud on the tires that wasn't there before. Red clay. We don't have red clay in Illinois. That's southern soil. Tennessee. Alabama. But I was inside for 10 minutes. Impossible to drive that far. User Pantom lower glowed. D22 got me in 09. Went inside to shower. 20 minutes. My truck came back with the fuel tank empty. I filled it before parking. 48 gallons gone. Like someone drove it 400 miles. But 20 minutes can't cover that distance. User Knights H shifted Treaker. I work overnight fuel at that iron skillet. I've seen this 13 times. Trucks disappear from spaces, always the same handful of spaces. They come back changed, different, wrong. Once a truck came back with desert sand in the wheel wells, desert plants caught in the undercarriage, sagebrush, that's western Florida, Nevada, Utah, thousands of miles away. A retired investigator reached out via private message. He'd worked for the Illinois State Police, had investigated these disappearances for 6 years before retiring in 2018. There's a pattern, he wrote. Every truck that vanishes from those spaces comes back having been to a location where something terrible happened, a murder, a suicide, a fatal accident. The blood in your truck matches that pattern. Someone died in your cab, violently. But not in this timeline. Not in the 17 minutes your truck was gone. It happened somewhere else, somewhere your truck gets pulled to. Pulled where? I asked. We don't know, but the theory is that those parking spaces are thin, like reality is worn through, and when trucks park, there when the drivers walk away and leave them unattended, something uses them, borrows them, takes them to places where violence happens, uses them as vehicles for something that can't manifest otherwise. That sounds insane. Yes, but explain the blood, explain the mileage, explain the security footage gaps. I couldn't. I had the passenger seat replaced. Detailed the interior 3 times. The blood smell never completely vanished. On hot days, I swear I can still smell copper. But there's something else, something I didn't tell police. When I checked my phone after retrieving my truck, I had 17 missed calls, all from my own number. Calls placed while I was standing in the bathroom. Calls made from my phone in my pocket to my phone in my pocket. I listened to the voicemails. There were 17. Each is 30 seconds of static and breathing. Ragged breathing. Panicked breathing. And underneath, barely audible, a voice saying, "Help me. He's taking me somewhere. He's driving. I can't stop him. I can't." The voice sounded like mine. Distorted. Wrong, but recognizably mine. I tried to trace the calls. My phone's location data showed them originating from my phone, but the tower pings were impossible. The calls bounced off towers in Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, hundreds of miles apart, all within 17 minutes. I don't park at that iron skillet anymore. Won't go near Effingham, but I've heard the stories continue. Trucks still disappear from B27. Still return changed. Still show evidence of impossible journeys. Last month, a driver posted that his truck vanished from B27 and came back with a wedding ring on the passenger seat. The ring was engraved, Martha and John, October 19th, 1987. He researched the names, found an obituary. Martha Henderson. Died October 19th, 1987. Car accident on I-57, near Effingham. Her husband John died in the same accident. The ring was Martha's, confirmed by her surviving daughter. But it had been buried with Martha. 36 years ago, whatever's using that parking space, whatever's borrowing trucks for 17-minute eternities, it's bringing back souvenirs, evidence, proof that it's been somewhere we can't follow. I keep my keys with me now. Never leave my truck unattended, not at Iron Skillet, not at Ewer, because I've realized something terrifying. The blood in my passenger seat, it never fully dried. Even after detailing, even after replacement. On cold nights, it's still wet, still warm. And sometimes, when I'm driving alone at 3 a.m., I feel someone sitting in that passenger seat, feel the weight, feel the presence. I look over, the seat's empty, but the seatbelt is buckled. Story 7. The overnight cashier Wujays backwards. The cashier at the BP in Lordsburg, New Mexico was 72 years old when I paid for my coffee at 1:46 a.m. and 33 years old when I came back for a receipt 9 minutes later. I'd stopped at this BP maybe 40 times. It was a reliable waypoint of my Phoenix to El Paso runs. Always open, usually empty. The overnight cashier was a man named Dennis who I'd seen age across 5 years of regular stops. When I first started this route in 2019, Dennis looked mid-60s. By 2023, he was clearly in his 70s. Gray hair, deep wrinkles, slow movements. The inevitable erosion of time. March 16th, 2024. I pulled in at 1:43 a.m., parked at the diesel pumps, went inside for coffee and a burrito. Dennis was behind the counter. Same Dennis. Old Dennis, reading a paperback western with the cover torn off. He looked up when I entered. "Evening," Dennis said. His voice was rough. "Decades of cigarettes, coffee, and whatever burritos fresh. None of them are fresh." Dennis smiled. "But the red one's only 6 hours old." I grabbed coffee, grabbed the red burrito, brought them to the counter. Dennis rang me up with a slow deliberation of arthritic hands. 8:47, he said. I paid with a 10. He counted out change, dropped it in my palm. His fingers were spotted with age, liver spots, old scars. "Receipt?" he asked. "Yeah, actually. Needed for expenses." Dennis turned to the register, pressed buttons, frowned. "Printer's jammed. Give me a minute, no rush." He bent down behind the counter. I heard him muttering mechanical sounds. The register was ancient, probably original to the building's construction in the 90s. "This'll take a few," Dennis called up. "I gotta clear the whole paper feed. You can wait in your truck if you want. I'll have it ready." "Sure." I took my coffee and burrito, walked out. The parking lot was empty except for my Peterbilt. The desert night was absolute, no moon. Stars fierce overhead. Temperature maybe 45 degrees. I ate the burrito standing by my truck, checked my phone. 8 minutes passed. I walked back inside for my receipt. The man behind the counter was an old Dennis. He was young, 30s, dark hair with no gray, smooth skin, bright eyes, wearing the same BP uniform but fitted differently, tighter, for a younger body. But it was Dennis. Same face, same bone structure, just decades younger. I stopped in the doorway, stared. "Receipt for pump 6, the young Dennis asked. His voice was different, stronger. No rasp, no roughness. "What?" My brain couldn't process. "You came in 9 minutes ago. Coffee and burrito, paid with a 10. My printer jammed. I got your receipt now." He held out the slip of paper. I approached slowly, took the receipt, looked at his face. It was absolutely Dennis. Same eyebrows, same nose, same scar in his left cheek that I'd seen on old Dennis. But this man was 40 years younger. "Are you okay?" Dennis asked. Young Dennis. His forehead creased with concern. "How old are you?" The question clearly confused him. 33. "Why? You Dennis?" "Yeah." "You feeling all right? You look pale." I stepped back. 9 minutes ago you were old. You were 70 at least. Gray hair, wrinkles. You looked 70. Dennis stared at me. His expression shifted. Not confusion anymore. Something else. Resignation. Sadness. "You noticed," he said quietly. "What the fuck is happening?" Dennis looked around the empty store, looked at the door, then back at me. "How long have you been stopping here?" 5 years. Since 2019. I've seen you maybe 40 times. And I've been getting older each time. "Yes." "You looked mid-60s when I first stopped. Now before tonight, you looked 72. Dennis nodded slowly. "And now I look 33. "Yes." "It's almost 2 a.m., Dennis said. "At 2 a.m. exactly I reset every single night. I work the overnight shift, midnight to 8 a.m. And every night at 2 a.m. I age backwards. 40 years in one moment. Then I age forward again. By 8 a.m. I'm 72 again. Then I go home, sleep, come back at midnight and do it again." I couldn't speak. "I've been working this shift for 39 years, Dennis continued. "Started in 1985. I was 33 years old, and on March 16th, 1986, something happened. I don't know what. I came to work at midnight. Normal night. But at 2 a.m., I felt wrong. Felt my body change. Felt decades fall away. I went to the bathroom and looked in the mirror, and I was young again. 33, like I'd been the year before. That's impossible." "Yes," Dennis gestured to his young face, "but here I am. Every night at 2 a.m. I reset to 33. Then I age normally until my shift ends. Then I'm back to 72. I go home. I'm old. My body aches. My wife sees me as an old man. But when midnight comes and I return to work, I age backwards every night for 39 years. Why don't you quit? I tried in 1993. Quit. Stayed home. Thought maybe the cycle would break. Dennis's eyes were distant. At 2 a.m., I reset anyway, became 33 again, in my bedroom. My wife woke up next to a different man. She screamed. Thought I was an intruder. Called police. I had to prove I was Dennis. Show identification, but the ID showed a 72-year-old man, and I looked 33. Jesus Christ. The cycle continued. Every night at 2 a.m., I became young, whether I was at the store or not, so I came back to work. Because at least here, alone, nobody sees it. Nobody has to witness it. My wife divorced me in 2001. She couldn't handle it. Couldn't handle living with someone who aged backwards every night. Dennis looked at the clock. 1:58 a.m. You should leave, he said. In 2 minutes, you'll see something you can't unsee, and I prefer to do this alone. What happens? Time happens. But in the wrong direction. Please go. I didn't leave. I needed to see. Needed to understand. 1:59 a.m. Dennis stood behind the counter, waiting. His young face was calm. Accepting. 2 a.m. The fluorescent lights flickered. The air pressure changed. I felt my ears pop. And Dennis changed. Not slowly. Not gradually. In the span of 3 seconds, 40 years of aging happened in reverse. His face shifted. Wrinkles smoothed, then appeared again. Deeper. His hair grayed. His posture bent. His hands spotted and gnarled. His young body collapsed into old age, like a time-lapse video, played backwards and then forwards at impossible speed. When it ended, old Dennis stood behind the counter, breathing hard. 72 years old again. The same man I'd seen 30 minutes earlier. That's what happens, he said. His voice was rough again. Old again. Every night. Twice per shift. At 2 a.m., I become young. At 8 a.m. when I clock out, I become old again. 40 years of life, compressed into 6 hours, repeated every 24 hours. Why, I asked. What caused this? I don't know. Nothing unusual happened on March 16, 1986. No accident. No strange event. Just another overnight shift. But since then, I've been stuck, living 8 hours forward, 16 hours backward forever. Have you seen doctors? 32 of them. They see me young at 2 a.m. Old at 8 a.m. They document it, film it, study it, but they can't explain it. Can't stop it. Time is broken for me. Only here. Only during this shift. Dennis sat down on the stool behind the counter. He moved like an old man now. Every joint stiff. I've aged 40 years every night for 39 years, he said. I've lived 1,424 reversals. And I'm tired. So tired. But I can't stop. If I miss a shift, the reversal happens anyway. At 2 a.m., wherever I am, I become young. Then old. Then young. The cycle won't break. What happens when you die? I don't know. I should have died years ago. But every night at 2 a.m., I become 33 again. Healthy. Young. The heart disease I had at 72 vanishes. The cancer I developed at 78 disappears. I reset to a healthy 33-year-old body. Then I age forward again. By 8 a.m., the diseases return. But they never kill me, because I reset before they can finish me. Dennis looked at me with ancient eyes and an ancient face. I'm immortal. As long as I keep working this shift. As long as 2 a.m. keeps finding me. I can't die. I can only suffer. I left, walked to my truck, drove away. But I've been back 6 times since March. Always stopping between 1:30 and 2:30 a.m. Always watching. Every time I see the same thing. Young Dennis at 1:45 a.m. Old Dennis at 2:15 a.m. The same cycle. The same impossible reversal. Other overnight customers have noticed. There are threads on Reddit about the aging cashier at Lordsburg BP. Photos taken minutes apart showing two different ages. Videos of the 2 a.m. transformation. But nobody can explain it. Nobody can stop it. Dennis is still there. Still working. Still aging backwards and forwards. Still trapped in an overnight shift that began March 16, 1986, and will apparently continue forever. I asked him last week, "Do you want to die?" He thought for a long time, then said, "I don't know anymore. I've forgotten what normal time feels like. I've forgotten what it means to age in one direction. This is my life now. Backwards and forwards. Young and old. Forever in flux. That sounds like hell. It is. But it's my hell. And I'm the only one who can work it." At 2 a.m. he reset. Became young. Watched me with 33-year-old eyes and said, "Don't stop here anymore. Find another route. Another waypoint. Because whatever happened to me, whatever broke time in this place, it's still here. Still active. And I don't want you to get caught in it too." I thanked him. Paid for my coffee. Left. But I had one last question. I called the BP corporate office. Asked about Dennis. Asked how long he'd been employed. They couldn't find employment records for Dennis. No Dennis had worked at the Lordsburg BP. Not in their system. Not in their archives. I called the store directly. Asked to speak to the overnight manager. "There's no overnight manager," the regional supervisor said. "That store is automated midnight to 6 a.m. No cashier, just pay at pump and vending machines." But I've seen Dennis. I've talked to him. I've paid him. "Sir, that store's been unmanned overnight since 2011. Budget cuts. We have security cameras but no staff." I went back. March 29th, 1:53 a.m. I parked. Walked inside. The store was dark. No lights. No power. The door was unlocked but everything was offline. Shelves empty. Registers covered with tarps. But behind the counter, in the darkness, something moved. I turned on my phone's flashlight. Dennis stood there. Old Dennis. Wearing his BP uniform. Standing in a store that had been closed for 13 years. "You came back," he said. His voice echoed wrong in the empty space. "The store's closed. It's been closed for years." "For you," Dennis said. "But for me, it's always open. Always March 16th, 1986. Always the night I got stuck. I work my shift. I age backwards. I age forwards. I'm trapped in the moment. Time broke. You're not real. I'm more real than I want to be." Dennis smiled sadly. "I'm a loop. A recording. A man stuck in time that keeps playing him backwards and forwards. And this store is the same. Stuck. Playing. Forever." The clock on the wall showed 1:59 a.m. "You should go," Dennis said. "When 2 a.m. comes, the loop resets. Everything resets. And if you're here when it happens, you might get caught too. Might start your own loop." I ran. Out the door. To my truck. As I pulled away, I looked back. The store lights were on. Fully lit. Operational. Through the window, I saw Dennis. Young Dennis. Stocking shelves. The clock read 2:01 a.m. I haven't stopped at Lordsburg since. Won't stop. Can't stop. But sometimes, at 2 a.m., when I'm driving through New Mexico on I-40, my radio picks up something. A voice, old and young at the same time. Overlapping. Speaking in stereo. It says, "Welcome to the BP. How can I help you tonight?" And I know Dennis is still there. Still working. Still aging. Still trapped. Forever backwards. Forever forwards. Forever overnight.